Welcome to everybody here. I'm Joel, as you can see there, and we're looking at redundancy and beyond, unlocking your transferable skills. And so the idea of this session is to be thinking a little bit about ourselves and how we put ourselves out there in the world. As you can already tell, I'm going to ask you to do a little bit of work in the session as well, so we'll see how that pans out. I'm going to be held to account on time, so we're going to also see how that works out as well. Right, we're here because we're thinking about unlocking transferable skills for this changing world of work. And we've heard from, was it Richard earlier, and then was it Sarah who was in here last? Yeah, I think I've got what's his name? Rachel, sorry. Rachel, yeah, this idea that we're out there presenting ourselves, we're thinking about how we're putting ourselves out there. There's a lot of competition, lots of new technology and so on. But what have we still got? We've got what's within us, okay? It is what we bring to the job search that's really important. So redundancy, we're talking about redundancy, but not just talking about redundancy, we're talking about any change that you're doing in your life comes with a certain level of uncertainty, but it doesn't diminish your capability in who you are. So that's me. My background is in training and development work over the last decade or so. Before that, I worked within retail, worked with Marks & Spencer for a while. I worked with a number of other retail organizations, then in the commercial world, and then in the charity world. So I feel like I've had a good taste of the world out there and what's involved. And more recently working with employability and helping people see through what it is that they can offer the world out there. And then I do some transformational coaching and career coaching as well. So working with uncertainty, yeah, this is where we feel for all of us in this sort of space, there is some level of uncertainty. There is a sense that we're not quite sure which way to go. And listening to Richard earlier and that thought process over 6 months or a year, whatever it might be, it's important that we take that time if we have it. Sometimes we don't, and I think it's important to recognize that as well. To do any of this, you've got to recognize what you bring. You've got to think about communicating it clearly, and then moving forward with a sense of confidence. And those are the key elements that you have that you can take forward. So why are you in the job market? We all come with the different reasons for it. And this is where I'd first like you to talk to the person next to you. If you're in a 3, yeah, just work the time out slightly different. I'm going to give you 30 seconds each person. If you're in a 3, just work it out 20 seconds each. You can do it. A very quick synopsis. Why are you in the job market? Yeah, just let's talk to somebody else and just tell them. So I'll tell you when 30 seconds is up and then you switch to the next person, okay? And just enjoy it. Tell them the reality. Why are you in the job market? Okay, off you go. Wrap up what you're saying. 3, 2, 1. Fantastic. Okay. So there's a lot of energy comes out into that. Why we're in the job market? Maybe we're working at the moment. We want to be considering something else. Yeah, maybe we are looking for work actively at the moment because we've been made redundant. So this idea of why we're in the job market is a really interesting one. What were you feeling when you were saying it? What were you noticing coming up as you're saying why you're in the job market? What was the language you were using that said why you're in the job market? What did it feel like? What did other people notice? And I think that internal narrative that we give, would anyone like to share what they were feeling when they were going? Don't have to.
Storytelling.
Sorry?
It's like a story.
So you were telling a bit of a story.
Yeah.
Okay.
How you've got from A to B.
Yes, okay. So you're filling out a story. And those stories sometimes come with lots of different mixed messages. Okay. So the idea of what's your story? Is it one that is about returning to work after you haven't been in work for some time? You're seeking a new challenge. So you want to be looking for something new. Are you considering a startup? Yeah, is that brave space? Are you facing redundancy? Are you exploring an internal career shift? And so that language we use around that tells other people an awful lot about what we are thinking about ourselves and where we are and how we come forward with what level of confidence. Are we sounding uncertain? Are we expressing loss? Are we expressing the difficulties we're feeling? Have we told them that actually last month this happened and I'm not so good? You know, what are those senses of the language that you're using? And are you able to present yourself as someone with agency, with clarity, with value that you can offer, with a sense of bringing that sort of certainty to what you're saying? So I'm going to show you just a couple of examples. A new narrative, okay? How many times might we say, I've had a bit of a time out for my family, you're returning to work, I'm ready to get back, but I'm sort of not sure. There's stuff that I want to do, but I don't know. I don't know where I can quite add value. You know, is it a little uncertain? What are we saying? What is that showing about ourselves? If I listen to you tell me that, and I've potentially got a role that someone I know about that I can come on to, do I think you're ready? So one of the things you can try and do, Oh, interesting. The slides are not going in the same format, but I put them down. Okay. All right, that's okay. Let's work with it. Let's see what happens. I've been in the same role for a while, but I'm ready for something that stretches me and feels a bit more exciting. Let's see. Yeah, okay. So we're looking at the questions that people have got. Let's just check if it comes into the next one. Yeah. Beg your pardon. Okay, no, it's missing some elements there. No worries. All right, so the point being here is that we have the way of speaking in our language that we can say to people how it is that we're sounding. So my role was made redundant recently, so I'm taking stock of what I've got to offer and thinking about what might work best next, okay? I'm exploring ideas of my own, something that reflects what matters to me. It's early days, but it feels like it's the right step, yeah? Maybe it's you're looking into moving into a different area within your business, within my company, as I know the place well, and I think I could bring a lot to a new team. So the core thing you're trying to do here is basically reframe your language into a narrative that talks with confidence and with empowerment, that says I'm not the victim of the things that have happened to me, but that I am okay, can't control everything, but what I am going to say right now is that I am in this space and I'm looking forward. So I'm actually curious now whether that language you spoke of just earlier, what you were talking to the other person about, what was the narrative you were telling them? Can you turn that round into a slightly different language that says, I am ready for the challenges up ahead of me. This is the narrative I tell myself, and this is what I want to see from you. Do you see where the changes, the difference is, the language you use is how I perceive you. And if I'm there on the other side of a conversation, am I going to hear someone ready to tackle the future-looking way of being, or someone that's still sitting in the past? So I'm wondering if you might just try this, maybe one of you or both of you have time in the next minute. What did you say just before that you think, actually, I don't need to put that in? I don't need to tell them that this happened there and therefore that happened. No, I'm going to reframe this, that this is an idea of my own and I want to take it forward. I've had a bit of time out, and actually I'm totally ready now to hit the workplace. And this is what I'm hoping to do. So reframe your language into something that's really positive. So maybe pick one of you, yeah, or both of you have a go if you can, just for the minute. So I'm going to ask you for 1 minute, and I'll shout out after 30 seconds. Just think of how you'd start it. Now, these are iterations. This is a starting point. Right now, think about how you reframe who you are to the people who you are speaking to, yeah, to give you that empowerment. So let's try it. So let's try for 1 minute. I'll shout out after 30 seconds so you can switch it around. Just see what it's like, or you can go with one person for the whole time. Okay, here you go. Try it out. That's going to happen. Okay, switch round. See what your language is if you can change it to something more practical. Are you mixing language too? Yeah. Short. No. Yes, exactly. Okay, everybody. Okay, a couple of things reflecting on there I'd like to come back to. Would anyone like to share their sort of new empowered sense of reframe narrative? Need to be very brave to have a go, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, I just felt I talked a lot about what I've been doing in my past in the first conversation, and then the new conversation I said this is where I'm at now, and this is my intention now.
Yeah. And that is exactly what we need to be doing. Yeah, perfect. We can tell people about the past, but let's actually think about going forward. And what did you say? Would you mind?
I said I really liked that, where it said, when you said my role was made redundant, not I was made redundant. So
And
I
it-
quite like that.
Absolutely. And in all the work you will do with anyone around career coaching or employability, it is never you who was made redundant. And that talks, that internal narrative you've set up about I was made redundant, therefore I can't be quite good enough, or I didn't really fit the bill. It's not true. It's not true.
It's almost flips it.
Whatever the scenario is, it's now behind us. This is me, and this is me going forward. So, first exercise, hopefully you can reframe things as you speak to people and stand up proud and loud about who you are and what you're going to say going forward. And I'm going to this before we go to transferable skills, because I think this is an important starting place for us all. What are the benefits? Your reframing moves you from reaction to intention, which is what you said at the back there. It builds confidence and self-worth. You are worth this, okay? It clarifies your direction of purpose. Where are you going, not where you've come from. It's going to shape how I and others perceive you. What is that sense of who you are? Now, I know when I faced redundancy and I was made redundant, I felt such a victim of circumstance. And it wasn't until I turned my thinking around that suddenly I could step into a room and actually feel okay about who I am and going forward. It's not my fault. Strengthens emotional resilience. We need that when we're searching for work, whether we're in work already, we're coming up with new ideas, we need some resilience. And it opens space for new opportunities. Yeah, it's a frame of mind that allows you to accept other things. I'm going to touch on this very briefly because I think it's also part of this, okay? When we are facing uncertainty, what can we control? What can we influence? What do we need to just accept? Okay, and where do you spend your time focusing? Now, I've had a number of coaching conversations with people who are talking about how angry they are that this situation has happened to them. And we work through it. And what do we reach at the end of that? Acceptance. First of all, what can you control? What do you directly manage or decide for yourself? What can you control? You can control your CV. You can control the jobs you applied for. You can control the time you spend on things. Is there anything else that you think we could control?
Who you network.
Who you network with, absolutely. And then that will link into the influence as well. What can I shape but not fully control? I can reach out to my network, which I control. What happens after that? I can influence. But what happens after that? I just have to accept. Yes. So there's an exercise here to do with a loved one, people that are close to you, where you are going to sit down and think, right, what do I control? Where am I going to spend my energy? I don't need to think about the things that are causing me uncertainty that I cannot change. Where can I influence this? So you can influence people out there when you reply to them, how often you chase things up. You might influence people's approach to you by going to events and so on. So you're putting yourself out there. So I would say in all our own personal circumstances, we have slightly different ways of doing things. So have a think about what you can control, think about what you influence, and then finally let go, yeah, or change how you respond to the things that you have to accept. So with that in mind, you've got two elements of you building up something within you that allows you to hit the world out there. Oh, sorry, just to clarify, CIA, lower stress and frustration, build your focus and confidence, boost motivation, resilience, and frees up your energy for what matters most. So, the matter in hand, okay? Transferable skills. Now I'm going to look at this as a whole in terms of skills. Yeah, we're going to look at a tiny bit on hard skills and a little bit on transferable and a lot on transferable skills. You come to the party here with professional value. You have a sense of your work that you've done, your life that you've led. This is all professional value. It's a combination of skills, of knowledge, experience, and personal qualities. It's what you can add in terms of effectiveness to an organization. Can you meet their goals, help them reach their goals, enhance their workplace culture? And your value is your expertise and emotional intelligence so that you can lead and work with others. This is your professional value. You put all that together, you've got attitude, knowledge, skills, and in the middle there are your competencies. Now, this is where you sit with everything that you have that you're putting out to other people. And sometimes our ability to communicate this isn't as good as it could be. So, professional value, hard skills. Do we all understand that phrase? Specific, teachable, technical abilities you've learned. They're the price of entry to a job. If you are going for a job in a technical world and you literally haven't touched anything technical for the last 30 years, you're not going to get through the door. But if you've got the hard skills that are relevant, what's the thing that's going to make you different to everybody else? It is going to be your ability with the transferable skills. Now, The hard skills are not always super critical. If you've done, let's say, some software within one industry, and there's a similar software in another industry, then those skills can be applicable. It's going to be the person you are that's going to be the attractive element of what you're going to do. So the transferable skills are the human skills, the area that you use to get the job done. They're adaptable, they're highly valued in every role and in the industries. And I've heard people talking earlier, Richard spoke earlier, we had Richard's one right at the beginning, I think his name was Richard. Anyway, this idea that you can transition between different industries. How are you going to do that? You're going to show them that you have transferable skills. So here's an example. Hard skills. If we just talk about them briefly, I'm going to throw them up. Yeah, they're going to be admin skills. They're going to be digital and IT. They're going to be technical. They're going to be financial and business. They're going to be customer client-facing skills. Yeah, we could start listing them out. If I said to you, talk about some hard skills, are there softwares you use? Are there processes that are established out there? Are there things you've got qualifications for and certificates? What about health and safety? Who's got a COSH certificate? Who's done manual handling? Who's done mental health first aid? So we've all been around some of these. Project planning, communication and language skills, maybe speaking another language. That's a hard skill. Yeah, I haven't got it. You have. You'll get the job ahead of me if it's translating French, okay? Anything with a certification and qualification. All right, those are taken as read. List them down. Make sure you've got them available to you. And now I'm afraid it's a bit of information here, but the transferable skills are the bit which you are then going to offer. And we're going to look at these and then we're going to try and build one, okay? So the abilities and behaviors that help you succeed in different jobs and industries and in different situations. These are the core of you and how you put yourself out there. They describe how you work, not what you do. And that's what people are buying into. When you're going into an interview and you're talking to them, they're going to describe how you work. I know what I want on my team, and I want to see those sort of skills come through into my team. And so I'm going to throw up a few here. Communication skills. Now, you can find these, you can do a search for them if you want, but the idea is communication skills, really important. Leadership and management. These are all the skills you develop working in a team as a supervisor or a leader, yeah, organizing people, managing those people, managing their development and so on. Interpersonal relationship building, working well with people showing evidence. We're looking at organization, time management. I'm sure you could all speak about how you organize your time, what time management tools you might use. Problem solving, critical thinking. Now, who doesn't want that in an organization? Yeah, so how are you able to put this across? Are you able to sell this idea? Adaptability and resilience, really, really core these days. Things are changing very, very quickly. Can you show evidence? And the idea behind this is that transferable skills, you're showing your evidence for using digital and technical literacy. Yeah, can you use technology confidently? Are you up to date with the latest things in terms of workplace software? If not, are there opportunities to go and learn some of that and pick it up, to volunteer somewhere where you can get some of those skills? Customer and client management, again, a soft skill that people really, really need. Training and development, and then finally business and financial, sorry, I'm going back. My clicker, you just go left and right. This is up and down. Okay, so transferable skills. This is the umbrella term for those, but you've got to give evidence for them. Yeah, and the whole point is that you can show somebody that there is in your background something you can do that gives evidence of these transferable skills. So let's see if it goes forward this time. Here we go. I would say there's 4 steps to this. There's 4 steps to this process. I'm going to photobomb some of these pictures. First of all, recall a role or a project you did. Okay. You're going to describe what you did. And I have done so much work with people with their CVs where they go, I don't have that much to say about what I do. And then we start talking and we describe things. And suddenly you're finding things that are coming out. I'll show you as we go through. So describing what you did, identifying and finding that transferable skill, and then thinking about how you show evidence of it. So what might this be as an example? I'm going to do an example, and then I'm going to ask you to think about it. What did you do? Yeah, recall a job and then describe what you did. What did you do in your job? Yeah, or to fulfill other responsibilities. Maybe you weren't working. Yeah, maybe you were at home looking after family and parents who needed attention. Yeah, there are responsibilities that show things you did. These are all transferable skills. So what did you do on a typical day? Now, when I'm working with people and I'm sitting down and saying, what did you do on a day? and tell me what they did. Suddenly you can start picking out the things that was their communication. They managed an enormous workload of emails and having to prioritize and so on. So they found what they did. What did you do in a typical week? And then it gets interesting. I said, what do you do monthly? I mean, oh, they forget these things. People forget the stuff they do monthly. And then annually, there was a guy I was talking to that managed this incredibly complex stock take, didn't come up anywhere in any of the things he did. And there were so many skills that showed up in that. So I think there's something around having a conversation with a loved one, with people at home, someone that supports you, to dig out what you do. And I'll say it again. It seems to be in conversation with people where these come out. I could guarantee we could sit down one-on-one and go through this and really, really dig out some amazing transferable skills with everybody in the room. Who did you supervise and manage? What challenges did you face and resolve? What systems or processes did you utilize or establish and why? What did you manage clients or customer relations? Did you use organizational skills in your work? And so on, and so on, and so on. There's a pile of questions you can be asking each other when you sit down and start digging them out. So let's have a think about this one. When you describe what you did, notice what skills show up. An example might be, one thing I did each month was work with other departments to identify policy issues, and then it was my job to work with those affected and come up with new work practice. We saved so much wastage. Okay, what transferable skill might be in that? Could be problem solving. Any other thoughts? Adaptability. Right. One of the beauties about transferable skills is they can show up in different ways for the different things we do. I picked out problem solving. Why not? Okay, but you might have chosen something else. There's no right and wrong. There's just a sense that you can pick something up and then do something with it. So problem solving. Is that a really nice statement you'd give out to somebody if you're talking about your transferable skill? Possibly not. But it's uncovering problem solving, and then you start verbing it. Yeah, I don't know if you've heard this before when you're putting stuff together, but think of a doing word. So the example's the same. The transferable skill is problem solving, and then your descriptive word, what would you use to say then? Well, you could say, I gathered information about production errors and presented a report that saved £4,000. Okay, suddenly you are showing evidence of gathering information. There's research there. You're presenting reports. My goodness. Okay, so if you told me that rather than the first one, the one on the left, the one thing I did each month was, then I'm suddenly seeing someone who can present a report, who can pull together ideas, who can tell me some information. And if I'm in an interview scenario and you've got through to the interview part, I can be saying, can you tell me a bit more about that report that you generated and how did you do that? And suddenly you're into a lot of skills that I can see working in my organization. So I'm going to ask you quickly to do this with the person next to you, okay? I'm loving all the pictures, that's great. So I would like you to think about a transferable skill category that maybe you mentioned just, when you're thinking about it, what you do day to day, or in a month, what you might do. See what it relates to, and then quickly describe it using the terminology we've just said there. The idea that a descriptive word, I delivered 14 projects in the first year of work against the KPI of blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So I influenced the strategic decision-making of the organization, which led us to et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I adapted the training program so that we could put at least 30% more people through that training program, enhancing our capabilities in the marketplace. What is it that you do that you can turn into a transferable skill that tells somebody in a sentence so much about you? So I'd like you to try that. Just pick something up that you do and turn it into something. So are you good with leadership and management? Think about something in your leadership and management that you did that you can turn into a simple skill-based activity, okay? A transferable skill. So with your neighbor, yeah, just see if something comes up for you. Oh, okay, bit difficult. See what you think. So what do you do? What would you say is a really good area of your skill base? Are you a problem solver? Are you a time manager? I'm going to give you about a minute, yeah, a minute and a half, just to think about this and try and turn something into a transferable skill. Okay. All right. Let's see. All right. And pause it there. Did anyone miss the Zoom meetings where you had the breakout rooms, and then when you press come back, everybody came back instantaneously? It doesn't happen anymore, which is great. People have to come back into this. Look, I think the reason why I'm doing this slightly different to just a plain old sort of discussion and throwing points at you, is that when you do stuff, things change. When you have a go, you notice actually it's not just a straightforward conversation. It's not simply out there. You have to really put a lot of thought into how you're going to present your ideas about who you are and how you're going to impress people with the skills that you have and the transferable skills that you can show. And I think this really is important, yeah. So that's I'll go back to that. So doing it again. Yeah. So it's really important to spend some time, yeah, thinking about what it is that you see as your strengths, what it is you see as your skills in those areas, and then finding the descriptive words. You've all got CVs, right? Yeah. In your CVs, you've got in every single part of your job history, you'll have some lines that tell people what you do. And if you've loaded that with hard skills, that's not going to communicate effectively to people. You need to be talking about the transferable skills. All of those transferable skills will be like we've seen here. Gathered, yeah, the words here, organized this, supported this, collaborated with a team. And we get lots and lots and lots of evidence in that, explanation of your ideas, which then allows us to see you fitting into our team with all the transferable skills you have. So, okay. So the crux of it is you're going from a sense of who you are, an idea that why you're in the job market. It's really important to know strongly, otherwise you're not going to come to a space that feels strong. You're then going to think about what you can control, what you can influence, what you can accept, which allows you to focus on things. Spend some time working through what your transferable skills are. You know, dig into your past work, talk with people, engage with that information so you can put all of that in front of you. And that builds you up as a person. That builds you up as the sense of strength you have when you're going out into the workplace. And then finally, how do we communicate that and take our transferable skills into the interview space? Now, again, lots of people will have heard of this. Many won't. And I'd like to just run through this just briefly. So the idea that you have transferable skills is going to be the reason you get the job, okay, or one of the reasons. Now, networking is incredibly important, as we heard earlier, but you're still potentially going to have to justify yourself in front of a panel, an interview, an assessment center, a group of people, and you're going to be talking about the elements that make you incredibly good in the role that they're thinking about. And I would say utilizing the STAR approach, and this should have other things. I'm afraid that the system has played with the slides, so I wouldn't be showing them all in one go, but let's try it. There are 4 elements. Again, there are 4 steps, there are 4 elements here. When you're thinking about putting forward your transferable skill, you're going to talk about, first thing, the situation, okay? What was happening? And it's around clarity here, because I've done it, I'm sure we all have. We start speaking, we're trying to throw stuff in, we're getting a little bit lost, we talk a little bit long, we talk a little bit too short. Okay, what was happening? What was the context? So, for example, in the example we can see at the bottom there, one thing I did each month. Well, each month I worked with other departments to review recurring quality issues that were causing material wastage. If you can succinctly state the situation that you're in, you're setting it up so that you can then put your transferable skill forward. Now, the next most important thing is, what was your task? Well, my task was to identify root causes and develop new work practices that will reduce waste and improve efficiency. Now that makes it very clear to me, listening to you, what it was you were tasked to do. Then what did you do? You gathered and analysed data from production reports, consulted with teams involved, presented a report with recommendations for change, then worked with staff to implement new systems. Now, what do you see in that last box, in the action box there? Can you see a whole pile of transferable skills that are telling somebody what you can do for them in their organization? So it is really, really important to think about the language you're using there, the presenting, the gathering, the analyzing, and it allows me to ask a follow-up question if I wanted to. So can you tell me a bit more about how you made that stick? Okay, and then I'm off into another conversation. So, and then you end it with the result. The new process significantly reduced errors and saved approximately £4,000 in materials over the following year. All right, so when you're justifying your or thinking about your transferable skills, you are literally putting them in a format that can allow someone to see their relevance in the role that you are going to be doing. And so, yeah, so that's really the crux of how one might use transferable skills. And I think the really most important part of it is the way that we have conversations that dig out all the stuff that we need to know about ourselves, that we have conversations that allow us to really uncover the transferable skills we have. Now, what do people think? Do they, well, I'm going to ask you actually, what action points might you take forward? So thinking about how you are now, where you're at in your career paths, is there something that you might do differently in the next week, the next month, also relating it to some of the other stuff you've done today, that would be important for you to do? Is there something you recognize in yourself? Is there something from the way you look at yourself, the internal narrative that you are taking forward? Is there something in what you can control and can't control and how you might come at that slightly differently now? Or is there something in those 4 steps of uncovering transferable skills? I'd love you just to reflect for a moment and just think what they might be. And I'd love to hear from somebody afterwards if that's okay. So what might you do differently now, sort of understanding a little bit more about how important it is to come at this with your right frame of mind. Okay, so have a little think, chat to the person next to you if you want. You know, what might you do differently that you would do from now on, a little bit different? If I can draw you back into the room. Okay. So I'm wondering, what things are people's, how do people relate to things slightly differently? Thinking about these things. Does anything come up from the conversation you've had? Would anyone like to share about some of their thoughts just now?
Focus on the future.
Focus on the future. Okay, so really taking ownership of where you are, what you want to do, yeah, and decision making there. What else might you do slightly differently? How would you do a process going forward, or do you see transferable skills in a slightly different way?
I think saying it often enough becomes something that's really fluent. You can see it really quickly, and it's like repeating it.
Yeah.
And also that accept thing that you can't change. That's quite important.
Yeah. I think, and I'll come to you in just a sec, I think this idea of having a star response to multiple questions that will allow you then to answer anything around transferable skills, yeah? So all of those, remember that page where there were lots of transferable skills, the evidence is built up in your star activities, yeah. Sorry.
My aha was that soft skills are actually now transferable skills.
Yes. Or yeah, that's exactly right. Transferable skills are soft skills. Yeah, that's right. I used to reference them as soft skills and now transferable.
Yeah.
It makes a bit more sense.
It does make more
Yeah. And I think that is what we have, haven't we, going forward in the world of AI, the world of changing work. What is it that we still retain that allows us to be able to hit the market out there and put ourselves out there? It is what we do and how we've done it. And if we can clearly state that and put it into it from a space of strength, then I think we're on a positive direction. Any other thoughts? All right, any questions? Or yeah,
Sort of a question. So my new friend Camille gave an example. That was an amazing star thing. How do you? But you know, it's kind of an example of somebody sort of asked a question about, tell me what time that you've done something,
Yeah.
that you get a good time to do it. But from a CV perspective, the kind of example you talked about was sort of like, it was kind of like a process engineering or something.
the last job might be a process engineer.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
and
it wasn't really, but
Yeah.
I guess the question is like, how do you sort of take a transferable skill and transfer it, if you will, almost into like a hard skill, like something that's more of a, that you maybe would be on a recruitment ad, if you see what I mean.
Right. Okay. I think two things there. The hard skills are the things that are going to get you in the door and the process. What was it? Process.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure if you're trying to put it into a hard skill, but you can use all the language of the job description. And I would highlight this and say it's really important. Use all the language of the job description into your CV. Yeah, it's really important to do that. But with the transferable skills, you can be doing that. So they might use language. Let's say you've got to be, your management skills, and you're picking out sort of, let's say, leading a team. Okay, and they might use a certain type of language for leading a team, but you can legitimately, you've said it another way, but you can legitimately use it. So you never lie on anything, but you look at the language on the CV and you make sure it applies onto your transferable skills. And the transferable skills are those lists underneath the job title that says, I work here from here to here. And if you've got just a list of hard skills, that's not enough. Yes, yes, if you manage that piece of software and you did that, but you need to turn your experience into transferable skills. And this is where the talking it out with somebody. I was talking to, there was a guy, a software engineer, who just couldn't put his skills, and he had vast transferable skills. He had the ability to manage teams, handle really high pressure workloads and so on. Didn't mention any of that in his CV. So I think it's really important that we consider, this is why the talking it out is important. I spent an hour talking with him, and suddenly we had piles and piles of transferable skills, and they all dropped into his CV in the right places, and then each one was lined with a gathered and a descriptive word, a verb in it. Once you've verbed it, you put a number at the end or a result, and you've got your skill. I think the reason for considering this is the fact that so many people don't do that. They don't dig around in their past and in their jobs and pull everything through. So I don't know, is that answering? Any other questions? Yeah.
Where your example has multiple skills,
Yeah.
one of the things I struggle with is feeling that I've sort of used the same thing too many times because it's relevant for lots of the different job description elements.
Right.
So, like with that one, you mentioned your example, it had data analysis, it had the solutionizing, it had working with the teams to implement a new process, and it had the report writing. So, should you just try and choose which one you think you contributed most to, and say, well, that's the one that fits in that box? And then you try and develop another one for the other skill.
Yes, and I would say you're quite right. You take leadership skills and then put that into, there might be some elements of organization within it as well. So when we do a star, you actually might find the same example of something you did actually applies to multiple transferable skills. It's got communication, it's got leadership, it's got other things in it. Yes, in the end, find lots of different examples, create lots of star examples with you, the situation task, and think about what I've certainly done before is allocate soft skills for the same thing. So that in an interview, I can mention one response, that's for leadership, but in another interview, it might have been for communication skills. Yeah, so you can play with it. You do lots of things that have lots of, and this is the difficulty, it's focusing it at the right time in the right place. But yes, I would certainly accept that some of those show up lots of different skills and bring in other ones that are relevant to the job or the job description. That is your task, is to match your job description, with the transferable skills that you have that will allow you to get through the door, get through the tracking systems that they have to check that you have the right sort of skills on your CVs and so on. Yeah, other question? Yeah.
I was going to say that since many of us are professionals and we have a lot of transferable skills, it's starting to become harder to fill in a CV, because to even explain one particular duty on a particular CV, even if you just do the last 5 years, it becomes difficult because you're filling up so much space, so your CV becomes 4 pages.
Right, exactly. And how many pages should the CV be? 2 pages, exactly. Does anyone here use a functional CV? Are they all chronological?
Yeah.
Right. So have a look at functional CVs, and that gets past the idea. So when you finish here, look up the difference between a chronological and a functional CV. A functional CV talks about your soft skills. So mine, if I'm applying to a job which is a leadership role, I will have pulled out lots of transferable skills that are really applicable to the job out of my 4-page CV, and they will go under the heading, one of those transferable skills headings, management and leadership. Yeah. Or communication skills. So a functional CV starts the same, who you are, your personal profile, your key skills, and then we're into something slightly different. We're saying, what are your key skills? And if you've got lots and lots of them, yeah, and you're applying for a job that's all about communication skills, you start with communication, and then you've got lots of examples in your past 2 or 3 jobs, and you choose the ones most relevant, and then you move down to whatever it might be, yeah, for the next skill that you see as most relevant. You don't put all 10 of those and fill them all up, but you choose ones that are relevant to the job. So functional CVs are perfectly fine for the ATS systems. They're absolutely crucial for people that have a vast series of experiences, yeah, in their professional careers, or if you're freelancing or done consultative work as well. You do have to be choosy. Yeah, if you've done the work and you've got lots there, you do have to be choosy and choose the right ones. Yeah. Is that okay? Was that sort of sort of the way? Yeah, and I saw a lot of you think about functional skill, functional
Just
CV.
one thing, but a functional CV is different from a cover letter.
Oh, totally. They're both CVs.
Okay.
Yeah, but if I listed every single job that I've done, the skills that I got from that, you'd have a long page of things that actually, who's going to find it? Okay, so the functional CV, when you look it up and you do some research on it, you'll find, and they're often for people who are, let's say, have lots of experience, a bit more mature, done lots of different jobs, spent time not working, and so on. Yeah, it's a way of putting forward and highlighting the things that are most relevant to the people you're going to speak to. Doesn't mean you're pretending anything. You've got also sort of dates and other things that are happening later in the CV, but it's a way of putting yourself forward. So I think we've taken a bit of a whistle-stop ride through finding and using your transferable skills. And when I was thinking about how to be putting this across, it's something we all sort of know, but until you're sitting down with someone and you start talking it out, what you've got, how you do it, creating those statements, that's when you'll start finding everything that is relevant to the people that you're going to be applying for. Okay, any other questions? Any other thoughts? Yeah.
Just made me think really. So if say you did have the senior role that you don't want that in the next role. But everything, your title is all around that. So how do you sort of, or your example be in that capacity?
We're going to be in sort of high senior roles, and you want to maybe step back a little bit from that and do something. Okay, I think there's you can't be saying something you're not. You can be clear about what your intention is going forward. So, that idea that we're saying right at the beginning, well, I'm a senior person, but I don't really want to go, what is it you want? What's your purpose now? I'm not asking you to tell me right now, but that sense that I've been really senior, but actually I'm deciding to take a little bit of a step back, and I want to focus my work in this area. And then you'll start constructing the narrative that in your head is one that you can start telling people. What you do about it, you can highlight in a functional CV. I would highlight some of the things that you have that you do, but aren't up at that massive senior level. Okay, you can't hide from the fact when you go to an interview that you're going to be saying, I've got this. But if you're clear about why, what can you control? You can control your narrative and how you put yourself out there. What can you influence how people see you? what do you have to accept? That some people are going to get that and think it's wrong. They're going to think wrong of you. So think about what you can control and what you can influence, rather than the bit that is going to be, you know, those that maybe see you in a different way. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Anyone else? Anything want to share? Yeah.
Do you have an alternative for the star method?
I tend not to. This is one I've been using. What are you thinking? Have you got one?
Because I find in interviews sometimes I get a bit sort of, I've worked out all these stars,
Yeah.
and then I find I get almost a bit like I'm losing them whilst I'm there telling this story of this situation, this
Right.
task. It doesn't suit my speech
Okay.
pattern at all.
But I think that's really honest. That's knowing where you're at. Have you found a technique that works better for you?
I'm just trying to reduce it down, but even in my sort of, I think in the last interview I had, it sort of worked better. But I am, because this is the default that you keep coming back to, is do a star, do a star, do a star.
And I think it depends. If you're spending 15 minutes answering a question on something, it's too long. Yeah. I think star for me certainly has helped me and others which I'm doing it to really concentrate on. This is a situation task. This is what I did. Suddenly I've got my skills out there, and then finally the result done. Yeah. There's a real power in an interview to say what you've got to say and stop. Okay. Just stop. Because as an interviewer, I love that. Yeah. Oh, my turn again. Now I'm going to ask you a question, because I have to listen to what you're saying. I have to assimilate it, and then I have to put it down on a form, and then I have to take that to HR and be sure that I'm justifying every single decision I make. I heard you say that you presented reports, and I followed that up with another question about how you did that. I heard you say that you managed the team under quite difficult circumstances, and a short answer, I got that, and I probed a little bit further. So I think there's an importance about giving your information across, and STAR for me works. You might need to find a three-letter acronym, STAR, or something that works for you.
Or even the smart method.
Sorry?
Or even the smart method.
Smart methods, being
That's
smart
reversing
objectives,
that, yeah.
specific, measurable. Yeah.
Agreeable, realistic, time bound.
If it works for you, that's great. But I think then it's a slightly different application. I think that's more of an objective setting one. I would go simple. I would say
How I mean is like, I don't feel like performance management, but
Yeah.
for like, how you're going to do that,
Yeah.
when you're going to achieve it by. But in terms of explaining something, then you can also use the smart method, but reverse it by, this is how I did it, and I did it within this time frame.
yes, I would put that into the action that I was doing. So the situation, the task was this, and then lots of actions that I had to do this. This was in this time frame. I had to manage these number of people. On the day it went a bit pear-shaped, so I managed to do this and so on. So all that sort of action that took place, and the result was everyone had a good time and went away as expected. Yeah, or something like that. I hear what you're saying, and if it works for you, that would be fine. I think for yourself, let's just keep it a nice, tight, clean answer. You've answered what they want, and then you're moving on. So yeah, remember, interviewers like it when you stop, and that you then let them ask another question. Okay, anyone else? I haven't seen. Is it 1:30?
You were wrapping it up so beautifully.
Beautifully, didn't I? Okay, good. All right, so I hope that's been useful. I think when challenged with the idea of imparting something that's quite a personal journey for a lot of people, it can be a little bit difficult. But I hope there's something you'll take away from it that you'll draw on as you go forward, as you think about whether you're changing jobs, you're facing redundancy or whatever, and then you're talking to people about what you've got. In the end, yeah, really think about the framing of the language that means you're out there doing your thing and you're future looking. And I hope that all of you have really good futures as you go forward. You can make some decisions that make a difference to you. Thank you very much.